Hello booktube, this is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. I'm going to do a Friday Reads and a bit of a non-fiction November TBR. Although it's going to be a very loose TBR because I've got a ridiculous amount of unread non-fiction and it takes me a lot longer to read long-fiction. I don't know if everyone else is like this, but I am a constant sort of looker up of things that I don't understand when I'm reading non-fiction, so it slows the whole process down, and I go off on sort of Wikipedia tangents. My actual reading, I'm still doing the group read for The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope, and we're getting to the end now. It's all starting to unravel, and I've really enjoyed this. It is unlike any other Trollope book I've ever read, because there is normally a character that's sort of very sweet that you're backing. You're not really backing anyone unless you're just... Everyone's been corrupted by the idea of money, and you just want to see how it unravels. Although I am sort of rooting for the women characters who have been treated very badly, and Marie Melmoth, for example, is a really strong character compared to the Weasley men in the novel. But I will talk more about this when I'm finished and when everyone else is finished. The only book I have finished this week, and it took me ages to read for some reason, is Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. It might be because I'm spending half my day reading The Way We Live Now, and then this is like my nighttime book and I just fall asleep. But I love this. This was right up my street, and I'm amazed at how Elizabeth Gaskell varies her books book from book. So this is the first thing I read by her were Gothic Tales, and then North and South, which is like Pride and Prejudice in the North, and then there's this, which is like Barbara Pym, but sort of 100 years before Barbara Pym existed. It sort of follows a group of old ladies in the village of Cranford, and it's very sort of sweet. There's lots of bursting into tears and holding each other's hands through happiness and sadness. I love this. I can see why some people wouldn't know, because there is basically no plot. It's little stories, little happenings in the village, and I guess that is what village life is like. And that's what I love about people like Barbara Pym as well. Yeah, the characters in this, I love them all. So it's the opposite of The Way We Live Now, where every character in this is good, or even if they're a bit of a snob or something, it's in a funny way. And like I mentioned in my last video, watching Kate Howe's video about sort of food in Victorian literature really helps with this, because there's loads of food and drink stuff in this. There's like people who sell tea and things, and they warn off people with green tea and things like that. And there's a great scene where they go and visit Mattie, who is like the main old woman that you follow. They visit her sort of long lost love from when she was young, and he has been a bachelor his whole life, and he doesn't understand the sort of the etiquette when it comes to cutlery, and he serves them peas, but he doesn't give them a spoon, so all the women are sitting there not eating the peas, and he's just spooning them in with a fork. Yeah, there's loads of stuff like that. And the other strange thing about this is it's the story's told by a much younger woman who comes and visits Cranford, and she's you basically learn nothing about her apart from a few bits with her family and how she's sort of, I think she's related to them in some way, but it's all told from her perspective. And I guess that is because when you read the biography of Elizabeth Gaskell, it sounds like this is her story. Basically, she grew up, was sent away to her aunts or something in a tiny village that Cranford is based on. So I think she basically doesn't flesh out that character because it's her. But yeah, I love this. This was 5 stars for me, and it just makes me even more excited to read more Elizabeth Gaskell. I was watching Katie from Books and Things. She just recently did a video on Elizabeth Gaskell, and she was like reeling through all the different sort of types of novels she's written, and it's extraordinary, really. She really would have a go at anything, which is very different to today's novelists who seem to write the same book over and over again. But yeah, this is definitely one I will reread. That it feels like a book that you can sort of sink into as sort of a comfort read. And strangely, Kate Howe also said that Elizabeth Gaskell wouldn't reread any of her novels apart from this one when she was feeling a bit sick. She would just read it in bed. So that's the kind of book it is. It's a sort of sick reading in bed comfort book, and I love books like that. And I've got Wives and Daughters yet to come, which is a lot of people's favourites. It seems to be an even split between North and South and Wives and Daughters, but I have that to look forward to. Right, I'm going to go through some of the non-fiction books that I'm thinking about for non-fiction November. I kind of want them to sort of fit in with Historifon as well, because Historifon's, I think it's post 1500 this quarter. I know it's the modern quarter, I can't remember the exact cut-off date. So I've tried to keep sort of mostly modernish history, which generally is not my favourite because I did a degree in sort of modern history and I had enough of it there. This first book is called, sounds really interesting to me. So a few years ago I read Claire Tomlin's biography of Samuel Pepys, which is maybe it's definitely my top sort of 2 or 3 biographies of all time. I love her biography of Pepys, and I was wondering if there was other people like Pepys who kept like these incredibly honest diaries at important historical time. I mean, Pepys's life was loads of stuff happening, and I found this book, which is about a dancer who was sort of part of the court of Mary Antoinette, and escaped France and became like a farmer and stuff, but she kept diaries this whole time. So this sounds really interesting. It sounds like a very interesting life to go from being in the splendour of that court to milking cows in a field, and I think she goes to America to do it, or Canada or something. But it sounds really interesting. I've heard good things about this author as well, and she's written. I don't think this is even her most popular book. So if you've read any, Caroline Moorhead. If you've read any Caroline Moorhead, let me know in the comments. But it sounds super interesting, and I saw it on Jo Walton, the science fiction author. She does a monthly roundup of all the books she's read on Tor.com, and she reads like insane amounts of books, and she's always really interesting, and she loved this, so that sounds interesting. This is one that I hold for like £1 or something from a secondhand bookshop, and when I posted on the haul video, everyone said it's really good, so I had heard about this. So it's about a woman who they used her cells for some scientific thing. I think it might be some drug, medical revolution. It doesn't say what the drug was or something, but basically she got no credit for it, and her family, and I think it's still like her DNA or whatever is still being used today in like millions and millions of pills or something. Their family have never gotten anything from it, and I think this is about that. It sounds really interesting, and it's got sort of trying giving a voice to someone who was forgotten. Then I have one of my favourite non-fiction authors of all time, and that is Oliver Sacks. I don't know what there's a mark on there, but Oliver Sacks was a neuroscientist, and he wrote case study books. His most famous book is the man who mistook his wife for a hat, which is brilliant. And he also is very interested in music and the way that music works on the brain. So this is his music book. If you've never read Oliver Sacks and you like non-fiction that is about medical things and stuff, definitely read him, because he's not only his book's super interesting, and he was like quite an interesting character in his field. Like he really stressed the importance of like empathizing with your patients, and he just had an incredible bedside manner. But he's also an incredible writer. His writing style is so beautiful. So this is a real possibility. I've had this one a little while, and every book I've read by him has been brilliant. PBS also did an amazing documentary on his life. If you can get hold of that, it's really good. The next one I have is I'm going to butcher this, Svetlana Alexievich. So I've always been interested in Russian history, and this is a book about she interviews loads of people who were there at the fall of the USSR and how it affected their lives and stuff. So she's famous for doing this type of book where it's just loads of interviews, and there's sort of a debate, is she an author or is she an editor? But they sound really interesting. I've never read one of hers before. So yeah, second-hand time. So that sounds interesting. It won the Nobel Prize as well, so it must be quite good. This next one is by one of my favourite non-fiction writers of all time as well, which is Robert K. Massey. I've only read his Russian stuff, so I've read his Nicholas and Alexandria, which is my favourite biography ever, and I've also read his book on Catherine the Great. But this one's about Britain, Germany, and the winning of the Great War at Sea. So I do like naval historical books, but I haven't read historical fiction, but I haven't read much in the way of actual history. So this would be interesting. I imagine it's good because he's such a great writer. If you've read this one, let me know. I had to order this one from America. I couldn't find it here. Next possibility is another biography, and it's Claire Tomlin, which I think almost everyone on BookTube has read Claire Tomlin at some point. Like I said before, Samuel Pepys one is one of my favourites. I think it's much better than her Jane Austen one, which is also good, but the Samuel Pepys one is amazing. This one is about a woman called Mrs. Jordan, who was an actress who had an affair with a future king, and I can't remember which future king it is. But yeah, it's Claire Tomlin. Can't be bad. And it also sort of sounds interesting, a bit like the Dancing at the Precipice one. That it's from the perspective of a relatively sort of it's lower class person, I guess, like a dancer rather than a king, and it's from her perspective. So that sounds interesting. Next possibility is a very famous non-fiction writer, Barbara Tuchman, or Barbara Tuchman. I don't know how to say it, but I've only read her. What's it called? The one about the 14th century. It's gone out of my head, but I think this is her more famous book anyway. It's The Guns of August, which it's about the months leading up to World War One. And again, I loved her previous book so much that I had to pick this one up as well. And I love the cover. So this sounds interesting, and strangely, I didn't do the World Wars very much at university. I focused on other things, so I'm always interested in reading more about that. And I mean, this won the Pulitzer Prize as well, so it must be good, kind of. This one, The Orchard Thief. by Susan Orlean. I've read one of her books before. She wrote a biography of Rin Tin Tin, the dog. I read that for some reason, even though I'd never seen a film with Rin Tin Tin in it. It was fun though. I just wanted to read a biography of a dog. I can't remember why I saw that as well. I think that was another Joe Walton recommendation. But this book is the book that the film adaptation was based on. But if you've ever seen adaptation, you know that this book is probably not like the film, because in the film, Susan Orlean becomes one of the characters and she's having an affair with the orchard thief and stuff like that. But it sounds really interesting. It's about sort of these people who go and try and find really rare orchids. She also wrote a book about a library that burnt down, which sounds really interesting as well. But she's got a nice writing style, and I enjoyed the Rin Tin Tin one, even though I'm a big Rin Tin Tin fan now anyway. I'd never heard of him before. And also, an interesting thing is Rin Tin Tin sort of popularised Alsatians in America, which I didn't know either. They weren't really around before that. And this is the last possibility. I've had this one for a little while. This is Four Sisters by Helen Rappaport, and this is about the Romanov sisters. So they obviously come to a nasty conclusion, but I've always been quite interested in the Romanovs, and like I say, my favourite biography is of Nicholas and Alexandra. But I've also heard good things about Helen Rappaport, so I just wanted to get one of her books, and this sounded sort of right up my alley. And she also wrote a book on Queen Victoria that I've got, but I haven't read. I've read another big chunky Queen Victoria biography, but not her one. But this sounds interesting. Obviously, whenever you read about the Romanov family, you know they're all going to get shot at the end, and it's sad, but it sounds interesting. It's sort of a great cover photo as well. So those are my giant stack of possibilities. I'll probably only get to sort of 2 or 3 at most in November, but we'll see. If you've read any of those, please do let me know in the comments and tell me what you think of them. That Claire Tomlin one, I think Claire Tomlin's very popular on BookTube, but I've never seen anyone read that one, so I'd be interested if anyone's read that one. And if you've read Cranford, let me know your thoughts on that as well. Have a good one, BookTube. Bye bye.